Anyways, that's what they do when they go to Evergreen. This was published by the provost of Arizona State University, the University of Arizona, and it was published on June 16th, 2020, and it is a message from Provost Lysel Folks. Dear campus community members and friends of the University of Arizona, many of you have taken time to write to share your concerns and questions over a number of alarmingly racist social media posts which appear to have originated with current or incoming University of Arizona students in response to the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent nationwide protests against systemic and institutional violence against and marginalization of the Black community. Other recent posts have documented racist acts by recent graduates of U Arizona. I very much understand your concerns and your suggestions that the university act in response. What defines an alarmingly racist post or an alarmingly racist act? The ability for racism to be seen in every little action that certain people make causes any non-deferential action on behalf of a certain group to sound alarm bells, to be not just dog whistles to these deplorable people over there, but full-blown siren-sounding alarms for those who are trying to support and uplift this movement and carry it forward in order to perform some sort of justice. We don't really know what counts as something that's offensive now because everything is potentially extremely offensive or alarming or cause for emotional trauma to occur. To continue, some of these callous, appalling expressions of racism have come from very young adults. It is part of our mission to educate such students, knowing as we do that cruelty towards others who are different from us so often comes from a place of ignorance and a lack of shared experience. That's really interesting. Knowing as we do that cruelty towards others who are different from us, others that are different from you. How? What if the student that doesn't post the right thing or post something that is critical of a certain movement, which student can be perceived as owing to a certain group that needs to stay in line right now? What if the act of cruelty is against them and is coming not from a place of ignorance, but a place of institutional power? What if the provost, in making these overtures of these alarmingly racist statements, is in effect forwarding or justifying the cruelty towards those who are so-called alarming? To continue, the very experience of shared learning within our nation's universities is a powerful way to dismantle ignorance, increase compassion, and reduce cruelty towards others who are different from us. I don't see anything about critical thinking or learning skills. I don't see anything about skills here. Dismantle ignorance. That rhetoric about dismantling comes from these people who want to dismantle systems of power. So dismantling ignorance isn't about learning. It's about reprogramming your knowledge, reprogramming your thoughts. That's what it actually means. And then increase compassion. What does that have to do with a university education? That has to do with actually meddling with people's morality and their emotions. That should be sounding some alarms right there. And then reduce cruelty towards others who are different from us. Again, different from us how? Different in the way that they think, different in the opinions that they hold, different in their own shared experience. She says shared experience in one sentence, and then the next she says shared learning. This is very community oriented. The value here is community love. It's communal understanding. It's a similar way of thinking. Groupthink. That's the undercurrent here. For this reason, I believe we must continue to operate a big tent, quote-unquote, institution, allowing all students a chance to learn and mature, to grow their intellectual abilities, to develop a working knowledge of history, of cultures, and of the workings of democracy. with the words from the preamble to the Constitution as a lodestar to form a more perfect union, ensure domestic tranquility, and promote the general welfare. Well, that sentence at least moves into growing intellectual abilities and allowing all students a chance to learn and mature. That in and of itself is significantly compassionate, allowing people to change and grow. So that thrust of this is pretty positive, I would say. Like, these people might be rough around the edges, but we're going to come together and everybody's going to grow up. But this is only one-sided. There's only one group of people, let's say, nexus of belief that is being targeted with these accusations of being cruel and racist and bigoted and against people who are different from them. But they themselves are different from us, and we are going to absorb them. That's the underpinning that I read. To continue, please know that we appropriately follow up with each student to educate them of our shared values and to help them to understand the impacts of their actions on others. If students have violated our code of conduct, we will enforce it. I'm sure they're going to change the code of conduct. I'm sure this is laying the groundwork to explicitly state which thoughts, which words, which actions by which group of people will be considered inappropriate. Or if they don't actually literally state that, that will be how code of conducts will be read henceforth, if they haven't already been being read that way, which they have. To continue, it is imperative, now especially given ever-expanding social media use, to educate the individuals who will build the systems and institutions that uphold society and the Constitution, with the express aspiration that they will find the wisdom to become part of the solution to institutional and systemic impediments facing our Black, Indigenous, and people of color BIPOC communities. Integrity, compassion, exploration, adaptation, inclusivity, determination. We live these values every day, and we continue to work with the students who want to participate in our educational community to help them to learn and grow responsibly in our special Wildcat way. I do not agree, I do not excuse, I do not condone, but I do defend the right for students to seek an education that might help them become better humans and to fulfill their human capacity for doing good in the world. So I think, there's a cynical reading of this that I've pointed out, but there's also a beneficial reading of this, or just going along with the fact that this person her job is basically to manage the expectations of the students. There's an entire multi-million-dollar industry about just placating students, and it's probably billions of dollars. And it's called administration, and she's a part of the administration. So what she's trying to do is navigate a tense social situation by proposing that we give people leeway to have certain beliefs or to make certain statements. However, the underpinning is that there's wrong think and there is group think, or there is wrong ways of thinking, and then there's the right ways of thinking, and the right ways of thinking are our communal ways of thinking. So I propose that this is setting the stage, and the stage has already been set. But again, this is another document that is forwarding a educational environment where struggle sessions will be very easy to occur. What's happening is that this ideology of safetyism, and added to that this hypersensitivity towards racial behaviors and towards statements that would be critical of certain movements that are using race to get their way in the world, whether you like it or not, or whether their ways in the world are just, or their ends are just and their means are correct, I don't know, but any sort of drag against that is pointed out and is attacked and is called difference and is called a violation of our community norms. So what we have is an expectation of the students to police one another and to pressure one another to behave in a certain way. And when the students find that one incident, and this has happened over and over and over again, it's just one little incident. There's a swastika drawn in poop on the wall, or somebody writes the N-word on a toilet seat, or somebody threatens somebody else and the person who was threatened goes to the campus police, and then the people who threatened are asked to give a statement, and then they turn that into the reason to overthrow the college. There will always be one tiny little incident that will spark the silo. And everybody's going to be so primed to get on board, because if you don't get on board, if you don't follow the crowd, you are complicit in the system that is restraining, destroying, and holding people back. If you don't get on board with this canoe and follow it down to the rapids that it's traveling, you will either be the target of the mob or the mob will slough you off. And one wonders if education is worth it nowadays. One wonders if it's worth it to pony up all this money to these institutions that want to shape your character and your moral standards more than they want to teach you a skill. At this point, it seems like it's more important for them to teach morals than it is for them to teach actual skills. And is that worth tens of thousands of dollars a year? Is morality worth that much money? Can't you just go down to a church and get that for free? Tithe your pastor for sure, but still, church is much cheaper than this stuff. Academic institutions are there to give us good workers, and what they are doing is giving us workers who have a trigger hair for offense and are ready to blow any institution apart if they don't get their way, or if the institution doesn't cater to this certain movement in this certain moment. And the people that it produces, not all of them, but some of them, are so goddamn entitled. They think that they can strong-arm you into implementing their will. And sometimes you just have to cut your losses and do what you can to shoo them on their way. Anyways, talk to you guys soon. Ciao.